Good morning, everybody, and welcome back to another episode of This Week in Magic Online Finance. I'm your host, Chaz Andres, and as always, let's get started with the news. The biggest story of the week, of course, is that the first ever Mythic Invitational just wrapped up. And I've gotta say, it was overall pretty successful. Yeah, I do have some questions about whether dual standard is really the way to showcase Magic on the game's biggest stage. I don't think it is. But Magic broke 100,000 viewers on Twitch for the first time ever, and the tournament was wildly entertaining. So overall, I'm feeling really optimistic about this tournament series going forward. We also got our first look at War of the Spark this weekend, and wow, the set looks incredible! I mean, that card and the other card, and okay, let me be real with you, I'm recording this video before those previews are going live, so I really don't have any idea what's been revealed, but I have to believe that this set is going to be a massive hit and hugely popular. I mean, Planeswalkers are the most popular card type by a lot, and there's never been a set with even close to this many in them before. Even if some of them are duds, this set is going to sell well, people are going to want to play with it, so I expect a lot of financial movement based on people being really excited about War of the Spark. So, how can we take advantage of this upcoming excitement? Well, I wouldn't be surprised if we see a small uptick in the price of Planeswalkers Matter cards on MTGO. In fact, this has been a really large part of paper Magic finance over the past couple of weeks. For example, the Immortal Sun. The Immortal Sun in paper jumped from $15 up to like $30, and that's where it is right now, but on MTGO that bump hasn't really happened. The Immortal Sun on here jumped from a ticket and a half to just over 2 tickets, and that's all it did. Now, I do expect this to change at least a little bit as soon as we start to see some really good Planeswalkers spoiled in War of the Spark. I mean, yeah, a lot of standard play has moved over to Arena at this point, but some of it is still on MTGO, along with modern play and casual play and other points of interest. So I would expect Immortal Sun and Friends to start moving up over the next couple of days. I would definitely keep my eye on those price charts, and if they start to shoot up, I would buy in. Let's move on now to gaining ground. We're in Standard for the 4th week running. It was Kaya Orzhov Usurper. This time she gained about 6 tickets, moving up from 18 to 24. And yeah, I've covered Kaya a lot in this series. I don't have too much else to say about her, other than the fact that I may have been hammering that Set Redemption Matters narrative a little too hard. I mean, yeah, I really do think that Set Redemption is a big part of why she is as expensive as she is right now, and I do expect the price to come down a bit once Ravnica Allegiance does move past that Set Redemption window. On the other hand, I have probably underestimated the amount of play that Kaya actually does see in sideboards in Modern, and there are legitimate reasons for her to be expensive on Magic Online. I'm just not sure this expensive. I also wanted to mention, before we moved on, that Arclight Phoenix, which you might remember was last week's biggest standard loser, gained about a ticket this week. Its drop appears to be temporary, and it is back on the rise yet again. This is important because, as we talked about last week, I theorized that the drop may not have been due to, I don't know, less play of Arclight Phoenix in Modern or whatever, and more due to the fact that a lot of people saw that Arclight Phoenix was being reprinted in a Challenger deck, thought the Challenger deck was going to be released on MTGO, and sold their copy because obviously the price would go down if you can just buy the card in a precon. Unfortunately, WotC does not release the Challenger decks on MTGO, so therefore the card won't be released online. And I think that is leading to the card increasing in value yet again. Let's move over to Modern, where the card that gained the most ground this week was Karn Liberated, jumping about 7 tickets from 21 up to 28. And folks, this one's not done growing. Karn's price chart is pointed straight up at the ceiling, which really makes me wish I'd gone deep on Karn back in mid-February when it had bottomed out at just the 10 ticket mark. Ah, regrets. So now the question we have to ask ourselves is, how high can Karn go? Well, Karn spent most of 2018 sort of bouncing around between the 25 and 50 ticket marks. So where it's at now at 28 is just sort of barely scratching the surface of the bottom layer of that band of value. Granted, Modern prices were overall a lot more expensive last year than they are this year, but Mono Green Tron is doing well right now, and some Modern cards certainly are still very expensive. See Surgical Extraction as an example of that. So I wouldn't be surprised if Karn stabilizes somewhere past the 30 ticket mark, probably close to 35. And if you've been holding off on buying your Karns for whatever reason, and this is the deck you want to play in Modern this spring, I would snag them now while they're still under 30. Let's move back over to Standard now, where our biggest loser of the week was Nexus of Fate, dropping 3 more tickets from 8 down to 5. And boy, as Nexus loses market share in the Standard metagame, this card really does keep getting lower and lower. We're entering uncharted territory here though. Nexus of Fate has never been lower than the 5 ticket mark, and it does appear to continue to be pointed down. It's going to keep losing value, which begs an interesting question. Is Nexus of Fate just doomed to irrelevance at this point, or are we looking at perhaps a unique buy low opportunity? Personally, I'm not ready to buy yet. I mean, almost no Standard cards are on my radar right now anyway because the market in that format is just too soft and volatile. That said, I'm not off on speculating on this card at some point in the future. I mean, Nexus of Fate was only released as a promo on Magic Online, and it does see play in Modern every now and again, and yeah, okay, if Nexus saw play in a Modern deck that ended up sort of spiking an event or doing really well one weekend, we could be looking at a pretty major gainer. That said, I'm not touching this card until I actually see its price chart bottom out, which I don't think it is done doing yet. So put this one aside for now, come back in a couple of weeks, maybe even a couple of months, see if it's but a ticket or two, that's when I would look to buy in. Let's move over to Modern again, where our biggest loser of the week was Fulminator Mage, dropping about 2 tickets from 7 down to 5. And this tracks with an overall drop in staples from the green-black rock deck that was taking Modern by storm a couple of weeks back. For example, Kalitas Trader of Get, which was also up due to that deck, is also down about 2 tickets this week as the hype begins to deflate. And this tracks. I mean, the deck is good, but it didn't take the metagame by storm like some people thought it would, and honestly, that's what it takes to avoid this kind of drop after a hype cycle. So at this point, I would expect those cards to drop a little bit further. I don't think they're going back down to their pre-spike prices, but they've got a little more value to lose. Now, the sneak of the week this week is Ancient Tomb, which has somehow managed to sneak all the way up from 4 tickets to 12 over the past couple of days, tripling in price. And Ancient Tomb has actually not been this high since 2014. So the price chart, it's still pointing up, and we are entering uncharted territory. I bring this up not because I'm telling you to go out and buy your Ancient Tombs right now, but to discuss the fact that Legacy is actually pretty robust at the moment. Between the format championships and a Legacy Grand Prix to test for, cards are doing really well, so continue to ignore Legacy at your own peril. It's doing really, really well on Magic Online. As always, we're going to end the week by taking a look at the MTGO Trader sales data over the past 7 days. And this gives us a really good idea about which cards are selling the best right now, regardless of price increases or decreases. Looking at overall sales by volume, it's basically the usual assortment of Faithless Lootings and Fatal Pushes up near the top of the list. I did see a couple of interesting tribal cards performing fairly well though, in Goblin Chieftain and Death Baron. Now, these 2 cards are essentially as cheap as free on MTGO. They're no more expensive than any other bulk rare, and I honestly don't know why they're seeing a lot of sales this week. It could just be casual interest, maybe somebody put out a couple of videos, or maybe it's Modern Horizon speculation. A lot of people, including myself, think that that set is going to be really rich and deep in tribal cards. Regardless, I'm going to add a few playsets of each of these onto my next few orders. You know, whenever you buy something, just throw on a couple of bulk rares. It's really no risk, and you want to have these in your collection in case something real does happen. Now, in terms of overall sales by price, Surgical Extraction was yet again the #1 selling card of the week on MTGO. Regaining its rightful #2 spot was Arclight Phoenix, which does help put some numbers behind its rebound. Also of note this week, True Name Nemesis, which was our sneak of the week last week, was the #6 best-selling card by value on MTGO, and that really says a lot about how well Legacy is doing overall this week, and True Name Nemesis in particular leading the pack. True Name gained another 5 tickets this week. It's up all the way to 62, and at this point, I feel like 70 to 75 is not out of the question. And that's all I've got for you this week. Thank you so much for joining me. I will see you next Monday morning. My name is Chaz Andres, and thank you so much for watching this week in Magic Online Finance.